Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the International Fund for Animal Welfare. We're so grateful that you're able to join us for today's town hall, focusing on impact in the age of the coronavirus. Today's format will be a brief discussion between Azzedine and I, followed by a question and answer segment. We are so happy to have Azzedine Downes with us here today, President and CEO of IFAW. Azzedine, welcome.
Thank you, Sabrina, and welcome to everyone online.
Absolutely. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Azzedine, there's people joining us from all over the world.
Wonderful.
So do you have any opening remarks to get us started?
Yeah, I just first of all want to thank everyone for being here in the town hall and to first wish you the best and hope that everyone in your family is healthy and that you're staying safe. I know that this is an incredibly scary time for everyone. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
That's so true, Azzedine. I mean, this pandemic is really turning everybody's world completely upside down. And to the people who are taking the time to join in and hear us, we know that you support IFAW and our work that we do on a global scale. So because of that, we wanted to make sure that you heard directly from us what IFAW is doing and continues to do in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. So with that said, Azzedine, what can you share with our viewers today about the current work that's taking place?
Sure. You know, I think, as I said at the very beginning, it is going to change the way that we work around the world. So my first focus is really to keep the people that you support, all of our staff around the world, safe. So we've taken steps to ensure that we are following all of the guidelines of the CDC and WHO to ensure that we are not helping to spread the virus around the world. At the same time, it's true that all of the threats that animals face around the world just don't stop. And I think that there are people out there in the criminal world and who pose threats to the animals will not stop either. So, you know, my commitment to you as supporters of IFAW is to ensure that we keep working. And what we're doing is really focusing on, one, keeping the staff safe, two, the advocacy work that we do to change policies and to change the way that animals are protected around the world, and also to focus on rescue and support of the people who are on the front lines of saving lives. So that's what we're doing right away.
Absolutely. And Azzedine, how can we focus on this vital impact when the world seems to be, well, is in such disarray?
You know, it really is. And, you know, if anyone's telling you that they have all of the answers to what's going to happen, clearly they're not telling you the truth. But the fact of the matter is that the world isn't stopping. You know, it is forcing us to do things that we sort of looked out into the future and thought, well, how can we work remotely? We were, I think, very much ahead of the curve on that. So all of the work that we do to ensure that people are reaching out to policymakers, to government officials, to look online, and we can talk about that a little bit more in terms of, you know, wildlife trade and illegal wildlife trade that's taking place online in a digital world, and everyone is online. But that work doesn't stop. And so the fact of the matter that people are at home or out of their offices, for the most part, has not stopped that work. The people, I think, who are most affected, of course, are the ones who are on the front lines and rescue and rehabilitation and release of wildlife. So that continues to be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Azzedine, can you share a few examples of this extraordinary life-saving work that IFAW continues to do all over the world?
Sure. You know, I think one of the things that's on everyone's mind is what's happening in China. And there's a lot of media about how the virus started and did it transmit from animals to humans, whether it was pangolins or it was bats. But the good news, I think, talking with our staff in China, is that they will be going back to work tomorrow. And let's hope that, the media reports that we get are valid. Certainly, our staff in China, based in Beijing, are optimistic that they'll be able to do some of the work that was on hold. But when you look at what we do in China, we have a rescue center there for raptors, and that work has continued. We continue to work in Australia with tree planting, always keeping in mind that we have to stay away from one another and social distancing. So we are following the guidelines there. But that work, after the bushfires, those fires are over, but that notion and that brand that we put out there of animals and people thriving together in the place we call home is more relevant today than it ever has been. Where will the animals live? So that work in Australia continues. The work in India continues, where we have a rescue center up in Kaziranga National Park for elephants and other animals. That's true in Zambia, where we fund an elephant rescue center. Zimbabwe also. So all of those things continue. And the fact of the matter is that the criminal element in the world does not take a break because of the pandemic.
Right. Absolutely. Azzedine, that's incredible work happening. And we know these animals still need our help. The pandemic doesn't stop them. So thank you for sharing.
This notion that everything has stopped in the world, it's not accurate. Mm-hmm. It's not accurate. The rangers, and I know that many people online right now are the people that support those rangers. And I want to let you know that, I'm in constant contact with them every single day. Are they healthy? Are they safe? We are going to be reaching out with some ideas to ensure that they have some personal protection equipment, because the virus, as you know, is spreading around the world sort of in a tidal wave, and it hasn't hit yet to the degree that it's hit in Europe and China and the United States that we see today. So we are expecting that, and we're preparing for it to keep not only the staff at IFAW safe, but also the rangers who are out there saving lives.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that incredible work. Azzedine, you talked a little bit about wildlife crime. Can you please elaborate on wildlife crime and the wildlife trade and
Sure.
how that plays a part?
The strategy that we put in place long before the pandemic hit was to focus on 3 areas, and that was the source country. Where do the animals live? How can we keep them safe? And how can we disrupt that trade? The second part of it was the transit, so looking at places in the Middle East where illegal wildlife trade was taking place. And then the third part of that was the consumers. And this is where, everyone on this website right now and the town hall could help with in terms of what they buy and things like that. So in China right now, the focus has always been for IFAW how we can stop the illegal wildlife trade and get consumers to stop buying wildlife products. And I can't say enough about that. I know we don't have hours and hours, but that work to stop that trade and to get the Chinese public to not engage in buying that wildlife product, whether they're consuming it or they're simply using it, continues. One of the things that we're seeing, and this is what I think is a change as we go forward into the future, is that the amount of wildlife trade, illegal wildlife trade, and legal wildlife trade that takes place digitally is increasing. It's increasing. And so we're working with Baidu, for example, in China. We have very recently achieved a 3 million articles reduction of wildlife products being sold online. So with the traffic around the world, criminals will always find a way. They will always find a way. And I think the digital platforms that are now in place will only see more traffic. And so we have teams of people using artificial intelligence, for example, to find those articles and to shut it down. And we have good cooperation with a lot of the digital platforms to do that.
Wow. So online shopping isn't just for clothes and books. It's also, unfortunately, used for bad things too.
Yeah, it really is. And all for products that really no one needs. We have a lot of discussions with the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, and almost in every case there's a plant or a herbal alternative to using wildlife products. And so that's something that we're going to really focus on again, because it's a constant struggle to get people to remember that they agreed not to do certain things. And the world is going to change. There's no question. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way we were. If you look at all of the things that are happening in terms of organizations and companies that are delivering to homes, it makes it much more difficult to shut down some of those markets because it'll all be unseen.
Right. Absolutely. And Azzedine, really appreciate all that commentary on the wildlife crime that's so important. And hand in hand with the disaster relief, I mean, this is a disaster we're experiencing. Can you talk a little bit about our world-renowned disaster relief team, and are they at the ready? What are they currently doing?
You know, they're always at the ready. Again, I have to thank supporters for all of their financial support, but also, you know, personal support of those people. Those are the people that put their lives on the front line. So when we look around the world and we look at all of the partners that we have and the staff that we have in place, they continue to work. I have to be honest with you. I think that there's this notion out there that, you know, all work has stopped, but animals need to be taken care of. They need to be fed. All of the rescue operations are still in place. We do have a number of travel restrictions in the United States, for example, in Massachusetts and New England with the Marine Mammal Rescue Team. It's very, very difficult now to even move between states that are next to one another, you know, Massachusetts and Rhode Island and New York, Connecticut. Those are places in which we actually work for some of the rehabilitation. So that's a negative impact. But the team is ready. And, you know, one of the things I just want to mention, if you haven't seen it in the media, and I'm just really so proud of this, is that the rescue teams and disaster relief teams did have equipment, personal protection equipment, face masks, and things like that. And we donated those to the local hospital to try to help them out in this pandemic and in the crisis.
Wow.
And it really gets back to what we believe in of animals and people thriving together. So I want to continue to save the lives of people who help us save the lives of animals.
Wow. So our team donated those N95 masks
That's
that
right.
are so crucial right now.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, these are things that are always on hand. There's a lot of media about why, you know, hospitals and other organizations that are involved in the health services industry did not have those things. Our teams are really incredible in terms of looking out into the future and seeing what it is that we need. And so I do want to just stress to our supporters that it's not always in that moment. It's not always a crisis. We're in a crisis right now, but we need to be able to prepare. And so we'll be reaching out to people to say, listen, we've done those things, but I don't imagine that disaster relief is ever going to go away in the world in which we live.
Right. Thank you, Azzedine. And we do have to wrap up shortly so we can get to all these. We're getting tons of questions in from our
Great.
viewers, but I do want to just touch base on, I know you're on, you work out of the Cape Cod office in Massachusetts at IFAW's headquarters. Can you talk a little bit about what you're experiencing from that part of the world?
Sure. You know, in the New England states, I live in Rhode Island right now. We are basically on lockdown. There's really no movement being allowed outside of emergencies and work-related travel between states. And, you know, New England is a very small place. But we have the International Operations Center based in Cape Cod in Massachusetts. The team is still on standby. We do respond to strandings, but that really relies on volunteers, and many of them are concerned about social distancing. And so the team has put out a lot of guidance in terms of, whilst we may not be able to respond to every single incident because of the situation. and we will call on fewer people just so that we're following the guidance. But the team is still out there, they're still working, and they're still able to respond, but they're incredibly well prepared and remain safe. So I'm happy about that.
That's excellent. Thank you for telling us a little bit about your part of the world.
Sure.
Azzedine, so like I said, we have a lot of questions coming in.
Okay.
So everybody, this is your opportunity to ask Azzedine any questions related to any of the amazing programmatic work we do to help the animals and its relation to COVID-19. If you could please type in your question on the little Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. I'll be sure to try and get to it. But if we don't get to it at this time, I assure you we will answer your question shortly. It might be offline via email, but we'll get to it.
And please do go to the website too, IFAW.org. I know that we're not going to have tons of time, but there's a ton of information there, and we always want to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see here. We have a question coming in from Anonymous, and Anonymous is asking, what precautions are being taken to ensure the safety of animals and staff specifically?
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah. So early on, before even some of the guidance came out from the various states or countries around the world, we were very conservative. And I asked people very, very early on to work from home to reduce the number of people who were coming into the office. And I think I can say honestly that people were great about doing that. We have always worked remotely around the world. You know, we work in 40 different countries. And so our ability to stay in touch with everyone has always been important to us. So we did that early on. And with perhaps a few exceptions that I see, the staff has been very healthy and has really followed the guidance that we put out early on. It did come out later that a number of places in Europe, you know, in France, as you know, experiencing very difficult situation. Those offices and businesses have really been shut down. But we took action really weeks ahead of time. So the people are safe. The people who are working in the rescue centers are also taking extra precautions, extra cleaning, and so far, all of those people are healthy, and all of the animals that we have rescued and are in the process of rehabilitating are also healthy. I would say the number of releases has been put on hold until we see what is going to happen in some of the countries in which we work.
Thank you, Azzedine, and thank you for that question. Let's see what else we have here. So we have another question, and I think this is very appropriate for right now. This is from another anonymous attendee. I've heard about Tiger King. Is it true that there are thousands of tigers in captivity in the United States? And if so, what is IFAW doing about this?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Probably the number is even higher than some of the things that some of the stats that you heard about in Tiger King. Places like the state of Texas has perhaps 5,000 tigers. So it's extraordinary. There are 4,500 tigers left in the wild. Yeah. So we do two things. We work in places where tigers live around the world and providing protection for them. And those places like India, for example. Mm-hmm. In the United States, to reduce the number of tigers out there, we have worked with the Big Cat Alliance to ensure that those zoos or the roadside zoos, sanctuaries that are not really sanctuaries, right, to be closed down and to save those tigers. But it's not just tigers, it's also large cats of all sorts of types, lions and jaguars and others. So it is true that there's an enormous problem in the United States with people having tigers and large cats, even in their backyards.
Your neighbor.
We rescued 11 tigers from a home in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey. So it seems incredible, but it's absolutely true that those roadside zoos really need to be shut down because they have no conservation value whatsoever.
Wow. Thank you for that, Azzedine. We have another question coming in here from Vincent. Vincent is asking, do you have people in IFAW specialize in working with individuals or corporations in finding innovative solutions to fight online crime? Thank you, Vincent. Great question.
Yeah, we do. We actually have a team that works specifically on that. The lead of that team is based in the UK, in London, and we have reached out to other organizations like Traffic and WWF to form an alliance to help us shut down that online traffic. And they've had great success. As I think I mentioned a bit earlier, the reduction of 3 million wildlife articles being sold online. And the use of technology is really continuing to be developed for artificial intelligence. One of the things that happens is that if you talk about ivory, for example, they change the name of that and they say, okay, well, we're going to be talking about, teeth or giving a horn some other name. And so it's very, very difficult to keep up with the criminality of wildlife trade. But that is something that I think is going to be emerging. It's getting a lot of attention, and I hope that we're going to be able to reach out to more industry and the private sector to help us do that. So in the past, we have reached out already to the companies like Baidu in China, which is a huge online platform, but there are many others as well. And so with everyone now online and the use of the internet and digital platforms, I think we're going to have to spend more time on that.
Excellent. So I have another question coming in from the UK. Tony is asking, have you seen any drop in funding so far due to the pandemic?
You know, it's a great question, and obviously this is something that I really keep my eyes on. I think in the UK in particular, it's been very interesting that so many of our supporters have phoned to say, we know this is going to be a difficult time for you, and we're not reducing our donation, we're actually increasing our donation. So that just speaks to the passion that you have as supporters, and I want to say thank you 1,000 times for that. On the people who are giving at a very large level, and they're giving perhaps from their stock portfolios, they're very concerned. I mean, the stock markets around the world have decreased, so we're being very, very conservative, and we're focusing on the rescue and the advocacy that we can continue. We won't know, honestly, what is going to happen, but I did send out guidance to everyone in the organization that for the next 8 weeks, let's make sure that we're reaching out to our supporters to assure them that we are still working, we still need your support. So there's a lot in the media about what is going to happen with nonprofits. IFAW has always been really good, I think, about managing the finances that you supply us with. And the priority will be on those people on the front lines to ensure that no animals are killed during this process as a result of a reduction in funding.
Thank you, Azzedine. As we know, the donations that come in allow us to do the work that we do, and we would not be able to save the animals without them. So really, thank you so much for kind of elaborating on that and for asking that great question from the UK. We have another question coming in here. I'm sorry, I may mispronounce your name. I think it's Julia, and she's asking, have you considered to collaborate with local police?
Yeah, on the disaster issue, we have always worked with local police forces, and it's something that prior to the outbreak of the pandemic in Europe in particular, working with police forces and also fire. So first responders, what we sort of call first responders, those organizations like police and like fire companies, firemen, firewomen who respond. They're very interested in the work that we do. And again, this really looks out into the future, is how can we prepare, even though there's not perhaps a flood or another disaster happening right now, if you're not ready, and again, we see this with the situation with the coronavirus pandemic, who was ready?
Right.
What equipment did they have in place? We can't ask you to help support the purchase of those pieces of equipment when it's happening. We need the support now. So we're always looking forward to that, and partnering with organizations that have expertise and equipment that we don't have.
Wow. So we have another question from Wim. Wim is asking, economy is slowing down because of the crisis.
Yeah.
How does this impact the financial situation? We did already kind of address that, unless you want to say something else, Azzedine.
Yeah, no, I think that we keep our eye on the financial situation always, and look at how it is that we are financially supported. And there's a lot of information out there for economists. The world has changed. There's no question about it. I think that even before the pandemic, we were looking out into the future to look at how it is that people want to interact with IFAW. We have been in business now for 50 years of saving lives. So we're celebrating our 50th anniversary year this year. And a lot of times that fundraising went out through the mail. And I think that the focus that we really put in place before the pandemic was to reach out to our supporters in different ways. So that's the reason we're doing things like this, to keep you up to date. But people want information in very, very different ways. And I think that the pandemic or the no pandemic, the world is going to change in the way that we interact with our supporters, and to make sure that you have the information that you want, and that you are convinced and confident that what we are doing is having an impact. I have never been a believer of simply fighting the good fight. I've always focused on it has to have an impact. It has to save lives. If you take all of the things that we do, I'll boil it down to one thing. Are we saving lives?
Wow, that's so impactful. Thank you, Azzedine. We have another question from Mark. Mark is asking, have we ever looked at combining IFAW with another organization to gain overall strength?
We have looked at that. We have looked at that. And a lot of times people will say, well, don't other organizations do what you do? And my short answer to that is no. If you look at the world of conservation, for example, the notion that conservation as we've known it up to date really included the notion that individual animals have intrinsic value has never been the case. So on the rescue side, I think that people really focused on rescuing that animal, rehabilitating and release. And the two worlds were really very much apart. The rescue of an individual animal and conservation. That's why we focused on animals and people thriving together in the place that we call home. If you rescue an individual animal and there's nowhere for them to live, there's no conservation policies in place to protect them. That's why we put together rangers and land use, water, vegetation, carbon sequestration. If you told me 5 years ago that these conversations were taking place in fora around the world, where people working on the conservation side of the world were talking about individual animals, I would say that is just not the case. And so that has been really something that we have focused on, trying to bring those worlds together.
I love that about IFAW, especially with the right whales. Each individual of those animals matter so much to the larger picture on so many levels.
Yeah, I think it was true, perhaps years and years ago, when there were millions of individual animals in a particular species. That's not the case today. Maybe you could have argued many years ago that individuals had no role to play in conservation. That is just not true today. It's not true. When you're talking about 4,500 tigers living in the wild, or 400 right whales left in the world. If you think about vaquitas, 12 perhaps left, they're gone. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So who was putting, what organizations were putting those two things together? That's really what has been my focus, and that has been my mission in leading the organization into the future. Not to move away from animal welfare, but to change what conservation means so that it includes the intrinsic value of individual animals. That notion that you see out there in the world that if animals cannot pay, they do not stay, that's a powerful argument that many organizations put forward. So save them to kill them, hunting, rescuing, my job is done. It's not done. It's not done. If you don't have a place to live, it doesn't matter if you save people, save animals, what you'll wind up with is a zoo or a sanctuary. That's not our vision of the world.
Right. And it's for the long haul, right? Like we are rescuing, rehabilitating koalas, but also, like you said, planting trees so that they have somewhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And I did get a lot of questions about, well, why are you reaching out to supporters now the fires are over, the bushfires are over? The place where they lived burned. So is the crisis over? It isn't.
Mm-mm.
Why are we planting trees for the International Fund for Animal Welfare? Because they don't have a home.
Right.
So where are they going to live? So that work will always have to continue.
Yes. Thank you, Azzedine. We have another question, and we could go on forever about this, but we do have to wrap it up. So we have one question left here, and we'll be sure to answer all your questions offline after. So we have a question here from Mark, and Mark is asking, how is COVID-19 impacting animals in the wild?
There's a lot of media about where it came from, right? And one of the animals, and I know that we don't have all that much time, but we could talk about the situation with pangolins a lot, and you can go to the website too, and I hope that you do, and let us know what your questions are there. The impact of the virus to date has not caused any deaths amongst the wildlife, but the problem was that how did it transmit? And this is just not known. There's a lot of speculation, honestly, but the thing that we are focusing on is I think you probably know that the Chinese government temporarily shut down a lot of the wildlife markets, and the mention of pangolins and bats in particular has got a lot of media attention, and they're trying to figure out how is it that it transmitted from these animals to humans. But the virus outside of the issue is something that we have always focused on to disrupt that trade, whether or not it was causing the transmission of the virus to humans or not. The numbers are astounding. The numbers of pangolins killed. You talk about tons of scales, tons.
And they're small.
And they're tiny, and no one really knows how many animals were actually killed as a result of that. So what is the impact? The odd thing could be that it will help us disrupt the trade.
Right. Thank you, Mark, for that great question. So we really want to thank everybody to joining us today. It was just an amazing experience, this town hall with Azzedine. So thank you for your questions. I just want to reiterate, like Azzedine said, to please visit our website, IFAW.org. There is a tremendous amount of information on our website about COVID-19, some frequently asked questions, a few blog posts about written by Grace, who is our Asia director. So she's very familiar with the wildlife trade, and we are actually having a vlog webinar with Grace on April 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and she will be really diving deep into the wildlife traffic that's the root of all of this pandemic. So everybody, please join in that too on the 15th. And Azzedine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. And, just be sure that we will not stop. This will not stop us. It might slow us down, but it's not going to stop us. And we need you more now than ever. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.